you vegan? What do you think of vegans? What does being vegan mean to you? Lots of people say they're vegans, and for different people, it means different things. So, my guest today is vegan. And so we are going to learn from him what vegan truly is and what being vegan means to him. Thank you for watching Conversations with Jenny Lynn. My guest today is Jamie Smale, and you may have seen him on some of my shows previously. And I've decided to invite him back to my show because he has just embarked on a new journey, and he's very passionate about it. I was having a conversation with him, and his enthusiasm got to me. I thought I might share it with you. So, Jamie, welcome to Conversations with Jenny Lynn.
Again, thank you, Jenny. Yeah, it's great as always.
So, Jamie, I discovered the other day that you have decided to practice a vegan lifestyle. Can you tell us what that means?
Certainly. Okay. Well, so vegan is where you abstain from all animal products, not only meat. So if we compare veganism with vegetarianism, vegetarianism is where you don't eat flesh, you don't eat meat, but you may, you eat dairy and eggs because those are animal byproducts. Those are animal, animal products. But as a vegetarian, you would just not eat the meat, you would not eat the animal. But veganism is where you abstain from all animal products, including the meat itself. And the reason for that is because a vegan wouldn't want to, not only, have an animal die, but also, my apologies, not only an animal die, but also doesn't want to use an animal as a commodity. And have animals domesticated and enslaved, and provide themselves as products to us. So veganism also goes another step as well, and this is where veganism is another level from vegetarianism, because with veganism, it's not only what you eat. You see, the vegans follow a plant-based diet, but in addition, you wouldn't wear things that derive from an animal, such as leather or any animal product in any in anything additionally to what we eat. So for example, and I just learned the other day, and I was quite surprised that things like LED lights have animal products in them, car tires have animal products in them, playing cards have animal products in them. So it's surprising, it's really surprising just how many inanimate objects have animal products in them. To maybe for the oil, maybe an animal oil, or something that, to, like a coating, like the playing cards, it's the coating, right? So when I decided to go vegan, I thought, oh, well, that's simple. I'll just not eat any animal products. And then I realized that I did have animal products in my life, and and I still do, because if I own them already, then, well, I'm just going to wait until I replace them, So I've done some due diligence, like take, for example, my car tires. When my car tires need replaced, I can buy Michelin car tires. Do you get Michelin car tires in the United States?
As a matter of fact, I've got some on my car.
Oh, well, there you go. You got vegan tires.
There you go. Did not know that.
Yeah, that's right. So yeah, it's just like, you slowly over time just, come to learn what alternatives. There's alternatives for everything. Like my phone that I'm using right now, right this very second, to have this interview is not vegan. There's animal products in all LED lights, right? I own a TV that is LED. So, I'm not 100% there yet, but I'll do my, I'm going to obviously replace everything with vegan. Yeah. So hopefully that answers your question.
So, Jamie, I know not so long ago I spoke with you one evening and you told me you just finished a big juicy steak. And so when you told me you'd
Yeah.
become vegan, I
Mhm.
wanted to know what was the pivotal point? What was the catalyst? What made you decide that
Mhm.
you are going to become vegan, but not only become vegan, but you are like you're taking it to it you are really living a vegan lifestyle, and that really as far as I know about veganism, it really requires a huge life change, and you have to eliminate so many things from your diet. And now you've mentioned a few that we wear and we have in our homes and we have in our cars that I wasn't even aware of. So to make such an enormous turnaround, that is life changing in so many ways. Would you like to tell us what instigated the change?
Yeah, certainly. I would love to. Okay, so it was a long process. So for many, 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 many years, in fact, probably my whole life, I instinctively and intuitively didn't feel comfortable with a life being sacrificed for my benefit, right? Especially like, to eat. But I wasn't vegan. I continued eating meat. And why was that? Well, because I would say that what finally made me vegan, it was the sum total of being confronted with these moral dilemmas over and over and over again. And then eventually, yeah. So, like, I mean, I was confronted with animal cruelty many, many, many times. And then eventually I just thought, right, okay, that's it. I'm going to do it because I was sick of the hypocrisy in my life of like thinking one thing, feeling one thing, and then behaving different. So I was out of alignment. Yeah. And so I just decided eventually, okay, I'm going to do it. Right. So, it's based, yeah, and there'll be people listening to this interview now that will agree with everything that's being said, and then they'll go and eat some meat, right? And that was me. That was me as well, right? And it may be that they need more information, reinforce the information, get confronted more. Sometimes it's many, many. You're presented with the information many, many times, and lying in your bed while you sleep and thinking things through. Sometimes it can take a long time before you take that step because it is a big step. It's a big, massive lifestyle change. Because what happens is when we're born, we're as soon as we stop, with our milk, breast milk or bottled milk, we meat is introduced into our lives, right? And I recently did a video that, it was about my son when he was like a preschooler, like toddler, and he said, "Dad, I don't want to eat animals. I want to eat sausages," right? Because he didn't know the sausages came from animals. And
Yeah.
like when we come into this world, we don't know from an early age that we're eating a slaughtered animal. We don't know that. We don't make that connection because you know what? Society has this well worked out. They call the meat products sausages, burgers, nuggets, goujons, yeah? So bacon, right? So it's not called cows and pigs and goats and you know what I mean? Like because then we think that we're eating a life, we're eating an animal, right? So a child, you think of a child, right? A child would like not make that connection. There's a disconnect, and that disconnect stays with us our entire lives, right? So we eat our meat, we wear our clothes or whatever we're doing, like and we don't stop and think, an animal has died. Now the next thing is like when you realize how they die, which is like very heartbreaking and sad. And of course, there's a disconnect there as well because it's all behind closed doors. There's a saying that if abattoirs, I don't know if you use the word abattoirs in the United States, you call them slaughterhouses. We call them slaughterhouses too. So let's use the word slaughterhouses. So if slaughterhouses had glass walls, we would all immediately become vegan. Immediately. Like there would be no
How
good.
about that, Jamie? I disagree. Some people have no conscience about certain things. They don't really care. They don't have your compassion, but a lot of people might. Yeah.
Yeah, I think you're right. Yeah, let's re-put that then. So not everybody, but yeah, because people that work in slaughterhouses eat meat, I'm sure. So maybe some do, maybe some don't. So yeah, you're right. It wouldn't affect everyone, but there would certainly be a massive increase in the vegan population if if slaughterhouses had glass walls, right? But they don't. Like it's out of the way. It's out of sight, out of mind, right? We're not confronted with the reality, right? We don't know the journey of the meat that gets onto our plate, or the eggs, or the milk, right? You could say, oh well, if you drink some milk, no one's dying. Well, yeah, they are. You just don't know it, right? Because there's a story of like the whole dairy industry, how the cows are kept, and the life of the cow, and eventually, yes, 85% of dairy cows are slaughtered for meat. Yeah, but like that's
So Jamie, sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, but as you were discussing this with me, different ideas are popping into my head, which I'm going to, interrupt you and ask you, right? Because you said that the cows die, but everything has a life cycle, right? I must tell you that I grew up in South America. My father had cows, and we milked them all the time, and none of them died because they were milked. Do you want to tell me how they die from being milked? Because I don't know, and that's why I'm asking you.
Yeah, certainly, I'll tell you. But first of all, let me ask you, I just want to understand your father. So none of them died that were milked. So did they be milked because they don't produce milk, when they get old? Obviously, like there is a time when they don't any longer produce milk. So what, were they left to live out the rest of their lives peacefully on the farm, or what happened? What happens?
Inevitably, they were butchered, and we shared the meat with people in our neighborhood who consumed beef. But the cow didn't die because we milked it. I think everything has a life cycle. So eventually we all die. Even you and I will one day. And it's a human assumption that we only die when we get old. But we don't know. We can die when we're young as well. We can get murdered, which I think is what most vegans think happens with the animals. So I'm just saying.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, we could get murdered.
Just playing devil's advocate here.
Yeah, that's okay. Well, no, cows don't die from getting milked, but maybe I can go through the story of the cow during the dairy process. So basically, what happens is a dairy cow will have a calf because, of course, to produce milk, you have to be pregnant, and then you have to have a calf, right? Otherwise, you'll not produce milk, yeah? So what happens is the cow is usually artificially inseminated to get pregnant, and this happens once a year, right? And so then the cow has its calf, but the calf doesn't get the mother's milk because it's not for the calf, it's for us. We take it, we steal it, right? And so the calf is taken away from its mother between 24 and 72 hours after it's born. This causes the mother and the calf great distress, and they call out to each other crying. They really are affected in this way, and farmers will confirm that. So the calf is taken away. If it's a male calf, a lot of them are termed waste products because like some male calves are utilized in some way, but not all of them. It's the female calves that are most valuable. They're the most wanted, right? So it's just products. This is just products.
So this is for commercial breeding, because in our case, our calves, the calf of the cow was allowed to suck on its mother's milk, and then what was left over we got. We didn't deprive our calves. So I think this must have something to do with cows that are being bred specifically for milk and beef production.
Absolutely, yeah. Like the small farm, like maybe, like obviously, like every country is different, and like a village farm or whatever is what we're talking about here. We're making a generalization. We're talking about mass factory farming, which is where supermarkets get their produce, right? So we're talking about the majority of milk that's produced, right? So of course, there's going to be like nice little farms, and I'm not out to demonize every farmer. Well-intentioned farmers, great farmers, they care for their animals, so like I'm not demonizing anyone. I'm just sort of saying how it is. So basically so the calf is taken away. The mother then, through certain drugs, they produce 10 times more milk than they would naturally that they would need to feed their calf, because of course we want to, like, pardon the pun, we want to milk it, right? Yeah, so we're milking it for all it's worth. This is money, right? This is money involved here. So we're getting as much milk from the cow, and then like need to re-impregnate the cow, and then re-impregnate the cow every year, and like this takes its toll. Yeah. So these cows are just like pumping out the milk. Yeah, like all the time. Yeah, and eventually we're done with the cow. And again, it's like there's no value for life, no value for this sentient life. Cows, they have they have feelings, and they're sentient beings, and we just treat them like a product, like a commodity, and we're taking their milk, and then like when we're done and they can't produce any more milk, then they're sent off for beef, which some would argue, well, hey, at least we're not wasting it because we're turning it into food. But that's something we'll go into a bit later, because obviously we don't need to eat meat to survive. That's a fallacy. I mean, look at all the vegans in the world. There's vegan bodybuilders, there's vegan MMA fighters. Some bodybuilders turn vegan specifically to get in better shape and have more energy, and that's their only motivation, right? So, I mean, yeah, there are some, people thrive on a plant-based diet. I'm one testimony. And, before I started this vegan journey, I was a lot heavier. I have to do the math in my head, but many, many pounds heavier. I've been losing consistent 1 to 2 pounds a week, and feel in the best. I feel fantastic.
So can I interrupt you, Jamie? Yeah, are you losing those pounds specifically because you've become a vegan, or are you losing those pounds because of other lifestyle practices that contribute to weight loss?
No, I have to say it's 100% pure going onto the plant-based diet, because I'm not doing any calorie counting. I'm still eating desserts. I'm not watching the amount of food that I eat. I just completely changed the way I eat. And so it's gonna for a while, because I was like quite a bit overweight to begin with, is working, but I would say it will plateau at some point, and I'll have to maybe watch my calories and maybe cut down on the desserts, or eliminate the desserts. But yeah, it's 100% just. So wait,
I have to reiterate this question and have you re-emphasize what you've just said. You are telling me that you are losing 1 to 2 pounds a week by eliminating animal protein from your diet. That's all it's taken. Right.
Yeah.
And you're still eating carbohydrates like bread, and you're still having sugars and desserts and all this, but your significant weight loss is as a result of not consuming any animal protein, no eggs, no milk, no type of animal flesh.
Yeah, correct. That's
wow. Yeah. And is this one of the reasons why you've become vegan, apart from your compassion for the animals? Because we're already at 30 minutes, so I'm not just trying to speed you up, but I want to make sure we cover as much material as possible, because this is such a vast topic.
And we've only touched the surface. Yeah.
Well, maybe we can do some other interviews.
Feels like we're interested.
Yeah. So we can cover the others, because I'm very interested to learn about this, as I'm sure people watching it, because I must tell the viewers that you and I are pretty good friends. And when you told me about your vegan, and we've spent hours talking about, you've shared videos and stuff with me in terms of what the cruelty that's done to these animals, because they're just viewed as our meals and not as animals. And after you told me that, and I looked at the videos, I have to tell you, I was oblivious that animals are treated like this domestically. For consumption, because growing up with animals that were not treated that way, it never even entered my mind that these animals are treated so cruelly. I decided that I was going to try to be a vegan. And I went 3 days. I went 3 days. I could not go anymore. I had chicken, I must confess. So maybe I lack the discipline you have. Maybe I'm less compassionate. I don't know what it is, but I think it's habit. Habitually, I've eaten some chicken or some fish, once in a while I have beef or pork. And so what I noticed when I tried to remove those things from my diet is I didn't feel like I had eaten. It's very strange, but I'm sure it's more psychological than anything else. Since we're kind of running out of time, I'm going to keep this at 45 minutes tonight. What is the one thing, because tonight we're talking about the beef, which has to do with the milk and the beef. We're talking about the cow, I mean. What do you want to make sure we discuss in this interview about the cows that people may not be aware of, that you want to make them aware of in case they choose to become a vegan?
Yeah, okay. Well, first of all, let's just like lay a foundation. When it comes to veganism, there's three primary reasons for becoming vegan. So one reason is the animal cruelty. To me, that's close to my heart, and like I feel that's an important topic, animal cruelty. So we'll maybe talk about that. But there's also environmental reasons, and then there's health reasons, right? So health, environment, and animal cruelty. That's the three things. That's the three big talking topics. Okay, so so when it comes to animal cruelty, yeah, we talked a little bit about calves, but like there's so much to say about all the farmed animals. And can I just say that if there's any farmers watching this, like there are farmers that could say, oh, I so care about my livestock and I really care about them and I treat them really nicely. And that's fine, right? That's not an issue. I'm sure you do. I'm sure there's farmers that are just really kind to their animals. We're talking about mass factory farming, right? And what I want to talk about maybe for the remainder of this interview, if it's okay, is like just to really kind of get people to think is that like, what does it matter how well you're treated and how well you're raised on a farm, right? And what does it matter if you're a pig or if you're a horse or a cow or a chicken or a turkey, right? Let's just face something right here, right now. Like we're talking about sentient beings with desires. They have the ability to suffer. Right? I mean, I've got a dog, okay, and my dog, he lies and he sleeps, and I see him dreaming, right? They're not much different to us, right? Like, for example, a pig has the intelligence of a 3-year-old child. You know, these animals, they're mammals. We're mammals, right? We just have superior intelligence. We walk on 2 legs, yeah. So we're much more intelligent. But there's not an awful lot different. They are animals that desire to live. They have feelings. They don't want to die, and like, you know. What I think we should confront ourselves with is that we're eating sentient beings who don't want to die, they want to live, and they suffer when they die. And people talk about, oh yeah, but you know, they've got a good life. Well, we're cutting their life short, right? A pig is slaughtered at 6 months old. They live naturally for 15 to 20 years, right? So like all of these animals are slaughtered in their prime. They're not living out their whole life. You mentioned at the beginning of the video about, well, we can die at any time. We don't necessarily live to the end of our lives because we could be murdered. Well, yeah, we could be. We're murdering them deliberately for what? For our taste preferences, because we want to eat meat when we don't have to eat meat. The food that the animals eat is edible to us. We can eat the food of our food. We're eating the food that eats our food, right? And I'm not talking about grass. Obviously, we can't eat grass, right? But so much of what is fed to the animals, and the reason I know that is because, like the majority of the crops is fed to the livestock industry, to the farming, to the animal agriculture industry, not for us. And in actual fact, we can feed a population of 10 billion people. There's only 8 billion people on the planet today. We can feed forever 10 billion people with no one starving, if we were to, you know, not give all these crops to our livestock that we're breeding to eat, you know?
So, Jamie, for as
Yeah.
passionate as you are about the animals and your arguments for them, there are people who have similar arguments for plants.
Right.
So we have a dilemma because we have to eat.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, would you rather boil a broccoli or a chicken? I mean, you know, like, yeah, like plants are living things, but they don't have brains, they don't have central nervous systems, they don't have the ability to suffer as an animal does. I mean, okay, yeah, there are studies and evidence of like, you know, plants have chemical responses. They have response to stress or the threat of stress or whatever, or being cut. Yeah, but it's not the same. I mean, I would personally.
But do you know that even
Sorry?
even water has sensitivities?
Right.
I read a book by Dr. Emoto where he talks about this.
Yeah.
So the dilemma we have on our hands is apparently everything that's existing on the planet with us has some form of consciousness that can respond to stimulus.
Yeah. Is it a moral dilemma though, really? Because like, do you have like a moral crisis eating some lettuce or carrots?
I don't know.
Is that a moral dilemma to you, really?
But for me or you, it may not be, but I'm just like trying to be a devil's advocate here.
Yeah,
but
sure.
Depending on a person's philosophy, it may very well have. But it's not yours, and it's not what you believe or how you feel, so you don't see it. And this is the problem, I think, with everything in our lives. Some things just don't resonate with other people, but I love that you have this passion for the animals and that you've given up eating them. So somebody watching this show, what is the one thing you want to make sure that they understand about the cruelty and every other reason that you are aware of why you have stopped with your animal consumption?
Yeah. Well, you know, I mean, it's a large topic. We can talk about the death process for every animal. We can talk about like electrocution. We could talk about stunning, throat slitting. You know, we can talk about you know, how the animals are kept leading up to the slaughter, if they're watching each other being, you know, there's so many things we can talk about. But I think that in the short time we have, like I would ask people to become conscious of what they're eating and where it comes from and what the process has been for them to eat what they eat, because, you know, like there is suffering. So for example, let's go back, if there's anyone watching this who thinks, oh, the poor plants, you know, the plants are getting killed. Well, like, would you rather cut a carrot on the chopping board, right? Or would you rather slit an animal's throat and have them choke on their blood and drown on their blood and, you know, take 30 seconds to die? I mean, like, to me, it's a no-brainer that animals have the much far greater ability to suffer than a plant. I would never be convinced. And besides, you know, like I can't imagine that someone would prefer to eat an animal because plants suffer.
Well, I have to put it to you this way. So many Christians, especially, let's use Christians because I was raised.
Yeah, because I come from.
Okay. So we all know of the story where Jesus took his disciples out to fish, right? So for most people, God is the Almighty, and that's where we sort of set the rules from there, from God, right? And what he approves of and what he doesn't. And so once again, I'm just trying to be a devil's advocate here. I'm not judging your beliefs or what you're doing, but I'm just trying to come from the perspective of what I think people might be saying when they watch this show. So Jesus took the disciples out, or they were out fishing and they weren't catching anything. And then he shows up and says, just cast your nets now. And then they got so much fish. And then we know of the story where he fed the multitudes with 2 fish and 2 loaves of bread. So if eating fish, let's talk about fish, was approved by God. And so what I'm trying to say, Jamie, is I love what you're doing. It's not a judgment on what you're doing. I'm just trying to be the voice of some of people that are still eating meat and eating fish. Not everybody has the discipline to do what you're doing and can enjoy what you're eating and feel satisfied and nourish their bodies appropriately and adequately. It can be done because you're doing it, and there are many vegans in the world. I know this. But what if someone just cannot adapt to the foods that you are now eating? What if they have to have some fish or some chicken before before. What if their body requires animal protein? What do you think about that? Because the whole goal of being a vegan is to stop killing animals, right? Am I correct?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, yeah, there's other things too, which we probably don't have time to go into on this interview, and maybe we'll do them again. But yeah, that's one reason. Yeah.
Well, tell us what some of the reasons, because I want you to get as much of what you know factually, what you believe personally, and what has driven you to this place where you are. By the way, how long have you been vegan?
Oh yeah, so like over 3 months. It's very, very early for me. Very early for me. So and actually that's interesting, because let's go back to your original question, right? You said, what about someone who feels they have to have some chicken or some fish, right? Well, and you also mentioned discipline. For me personally, it doesn't require any discipline. It did for the first few days, for the first week, 2 weeks, maybe 3 weeks. It required a lot of discipline, right? But beyond that, there's no discipline required, because like, you know, it's like, it's not like, oh, I mustn't eat some chocolate, right, because I need to watch my figure. But it's not like that. Yeah, it's like, does it require discipline for me to not go out and murder someone? It doesn't require discipline. It's just natural. It's natural that I wouldn't do that, because it's just like, it's unthinkable that I would go out and murder someone. So that becomes part of your like mindset. It just is unthinkable for me now that I would pay money for someone to slaughter an animal for me to eat, because now let's go back to someone who thinks they need chicken or fish. Personally, I believe that there's no scientific basis for that. I honestly don't, and maybe this will blow up the comment section of the video, but plant-based diet is becoming, there's more and more renowned doctors that endorse the plant-based diet. No one's ever died from a plant-based diet. If people die through malnutrition, they're doing it wrong. They're lacking nutrients because they're eating terribly. You can eat terribly as a vegan. You can be on a plant-based diet and eat terribly and look ill and be malnourished if you eat crap. Yeah, so it's every person's individual responsibility to eat well, right? Because there's also people who eat meat and who are not vegans that are malnourished.
So can I ask you, when you chose to live a vegan lifestyle, did you have a doctor or somebody like assist you on exactly what you need to make sure you include in your daily diets, or you just went willy-nilly and are doing it on your own? Because
yeah, I did. I went willy-nilly.
You did, because not everyone will know, exactly. I mean, most people, I don't think, pay as much attention to making sure they have the protein so they can get their amino acids and their protein and their carbohydrates, and that they have a balanced meal. A lot of people are so busy that they don't always pay attention that they're getting a little bit of all these essential food groups. So how, as a vegan, are you sure that you are getting all the essentials?
Well, so I take supplements, which I think is important whether you're a vegan or whether you're not. I think supplements is good, because in this day and age, with pollution and the way the earth is, like, we're losing nutrients. It doesn't hurt to top up your nutrients through supplementation. No harm comes from that. So
let me interrupt you for a minute. Are you aware that some of these supplements are made from animals?
Absolutely. I take vegan supplements. So yeah. So obviously, as a vegan,
sorry,
no, that's okay. I do my due diligence on everything that goes into my mouth now, because and hey, maybe I've made mistakes, of course. I mean, it's hard work. But actually, that's something that I should bring up, because I have to say a little bit about my vegan journey, right? So because I'm a new vegan, and when I became vegan, because a lot of people will be wondering this, that are watching this interview, they'll be thinking, yeah, but you know what? There's nothing out there for vegans. Like, what am I going to do? What am I going to eat? And you know what? It's really shocking, because you go into the supermarket. So when I went into the supermarket to do my first vegan shop, right, I was looking for the vegan section. I was looking for things that said vegan all over the packaging, right? And yes, there are, but guess what? There's so much stuff that is naturally vegan that you would never have realized because you were never looking for it. So for example, right, I went thinking, let me find some vegan pasta, right? Because I thought, oh yeah, pasta is bound to have egg in it. There's pasta that you make, like fresh pasta, it does have egg in it. So I thought, well, hey, all the packaged pasta is going to have egg in it. And bread, I thought, oh God, let me find some vegan bread. And oh, let me find some vegan this and vegan that. And then, do you know what? You go down, you start looking at the labels and you realize, wow, that is vegan, right? So like like most pasta is vegan, most bread is vegan. I didn't know that. So I was able to pick a lot of vegan food that wasn't advertising itself as vegan, but it just so happened to be vegan. So it turns out that you realize that being vegan is nowhere near as difficult as you maybe thought. And that's why I believe that in today's society, we ought to strongly consider veganism, because we have so many alternatives that animals don't have to suffer. We're not in a survival situation like the Eskimos, or people living like in a tribe in the rainforest or whatever, like that hunt. We're not hunter gatherers in this society. We've got so much alternatives. But the thing is that the population, the size that it is, we're in trouble, because we all want to eat our 3 lots of meat every day, and we're in trouble for that, with the population the size it is, and we're growing. Anyway.
So this occurred to me while you were speaking. You said, why we should stop eating animals. But let me ask you then, Jamie, so what would happen to all the mass amount of cows and pigs? And so everybody would have to have a pet cow or pet pig. I'm just asking because I know people who do this commercially, have acres and acres of these animals. Absolutely. And so then why, should we just all keep them around and feed them and then have them die and they're normal? What do you want to say to this?
Yeah, sure.
I think you get what I'm saying.
I completely get what you're saying. And here's the reality, right? The world isn't going to become vegan tomorrow. That's never going to happen. It's going to take a long time for everyone in the world to decide to become vegan, right? There's always going to be a demand for meat. It's all about supply and demand. So you imagine this, all the animals that have been bred for the purpose of eating, right? We don't need to wonder what the hell are we going to do with them tomorrow, because it's going to be a slow, gradual process as more and more people decide to become vegan. So like the animal agriculture industry is going to continue. It's just going to decrease and slow down and decrease, and it will eventually get to a point that, or maybe it'll be eliminated completely. We're talking a long time from now. But we don't have to just send them all to the wild to fend for themselves, I think. And also, I do believe that cattle, we breed them into existence for eating, but they have, they've got uses. Now that sounds terrible, so I'm telling about not using animals.
You can put them to clean the house. Why not?
As they graze, and they're pooping and they're fertilizing the ground. So and they're treading the ground and aerating the ground or whatever, and the manure and all that. So that's good for the earth. So I would say we need some cattle. We can let them graze and work the ground, and I don't think we need to eat them, because they're lovely.
Yeah, they are.
We don't need to eat them. We really don't. We can thrive and we can thrive on a plant-based.
Well, Jamie, I am so sorry about that. We had some technical issues and the interview shut down in the middle. So we are back. And so, Jamie, I don't remember what we were discussing when the internet timed out. So I guess we can just start, since we only have 10 minutes left. Tell us where you want to begin, because I want to make sure we cover everything you want us to know.
Well, that's okay. I don't exactly remember where we left off, but if we backtrack a little bit, I remember you mentioned something and then we got sidetracked and we moved on to something else. And you brought up a very valid point. And you said about Jesus when he told his disciples to cast their nets, and they brought in a lot of fish on their nets, and Jesus ate fish, and therefore if Jesus ate fish, then is it morally justified that we can eat fish and animals because Jesus did? We only know that he ate fish, right? And what I would say to that is that, well, if the Bible is your moral guidebook, because it's not everybody's. To me, I don't doesn't make a difference to me if Jesus ate fish or meat or what he ate. I follow my own like kind of thing, you know. So, but anyway, but here's the real big thing, right? Is that those fish would have replenished, yeah, because we're living today. Life was very different back then, right? Because like the population was nowhere near, not even a fraction of what it is today. So the way that we do fishing today is we do mass commercial fishing, these nets dragging the entire ocean, picking up everything in its path. Of every 5 pounds of fish caught in the net, 4 pounds of that is bykill, they call it. So it's just waste product. It's not the intended catch, right? And we're literally scooping out all the life from the oceans. Now, what's happening is in doing that, we're wiping out levels of the food chain, so that fish species are becoming extinct because we're catching their food, right? So, like, if you do your research, you'll find that like there's species in the ocean becoming extinct like all the time, and in the forests as well. I mean, but that's another topic. So we're eating the food that belongs to the fish. They're going hungry. They're dying out. We're just literally scooping up. We're ruining the ocean's ecosystem, and they have projected that by 2048 there'll be no fish left. Well, that's really dangerous because 80% of the oxygen that we breathe is produced by the ocean, right? People talk about the rainforest as the lungs of the earth, but in actual fact, it's the ocean that produces most of the oxygen, because the ocean covers 2/3 of the planet. All the plant life in the ocean is putting oxygen into the atmosphere that we breathe, and we're ruining it, and that's really dangerous. We breathe the air. What happens when the air we breathe is, yeah, so anyway, so basically in Jesus' time, like, you know, the fishing was not en masse. They didn't have like multitudes of ships in the ocean dragging these gigantic, enormous nets 24/7, right? Scooping everything out of the ocean. So it was very, very different, you know?
Thank you, Jamie, for that. Another thing I wanted to ask you, because you're British.
Yeah, certainly.
And you guys had mad cow's disease some years ago. I think maybe like 10, 12 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know, because you're very informed, do you know what percentage of people stopped consuming beef after that? And could you tell us a little bit, or whatever you know, about mad cow's disease?
Yeah, certainly. Well, you got me there. It's something I don't know much about, but I do have a comment. I do have a comment related to that subject. So I'm not sure how many people were put off beef and maybe went vegan or gave up beef at that time. I don't know. It would be interesting to know. I'd be interested to know myself. But what I can say,
there is some homework for you.
Yeah, absolutely.
For the next interview, you can answer that for us.
Yeah. Okay, I will do. I'll look it up. Okay. But like what I can say is that this is the start of it, because there is like, you know, some speculate the official story of COVID-19 is that it came from the fish markets, didn't it? And there's a lot of controversy. Yeah, it was like some wet markets or something, you know.
I heard it came from some woman ingested soup made from bats. That's what I heard.
Oh, right. Yeah. There's many.
I'm not sure what its origin.
Yeah. Some theorize it was deliberate. Some theorize it was an accident. Some theorize it came from like some kind of animal or a bat or whatever. So like, you know, God knows the truth.
I did not hear the fish version of COVID. I didn't. This is the first time I'm hearing about it. You heard of anyway version?
Yeah, there's many versions, and I don't know all the versions, and I don't know which one is right. We may never know. But what we do know is that there has been pandemics started, like look at bird flu, swine flu, right? You know, swine flu came from pigs, bird flu comes from birds. So pandemics have started from like the way that we treat and the way that we hold animals and keep animals, and it's going to get worse. And they're talking about antibacterial resistance. 60% of the antibiotic, 60% of the antibiotics in the world are given to animals, not to humans. There are animals that are on antibiotics their entire lives. Why? because they're in pain and discomfort, and they're getting infections from all the bacteria from the way they're kept. So they have to be on antibiotics to keep them living, so that we can obviously utilize them. And like, so what's happening is, so the bacteria is mutating and getting around, working around these antibiotics, and they're talking about an antibiotic resistance pandemic in the future that will kill 10 million people a year because of the way that we're giving out so many antibiotics to these animals. And of course, with all the bacteria, they're having a party, right? So yeah, and like there's going to be.
I wonder what happens to us when we ingest this type of meat.
Yeah, I know. Well, I'll tell you what. If anyone sees these animals, when we get the meat all packaged and it's clean and it looks palatable in its packaging, but if you see these livestock filthy, dirty, covered in feces, all on top of each other, it would not make you feel hungry. It would not make you feel like, oh, I desire a bacon sandwich.
Can I interrupt you again, Jamie? So you have seen some of this? And how do we know that every farmer, that these are the conditions? How do we know it's not a few isolated ones? Because generally when people want to prove a point, they will go and find the evidence to support that point. But it doesn't always mean that this is true for every farmer, because, geez, it makes me shudder to think that these farmers have no conscience and it's all about making money. And I can't believe that every single farmer is like that.
Yeah, of course, there's good farmers and bad farmers, the same as there's good and bad in everything, right? So yeah, I'm sure there are lovely farmers that care very deeply. They're very hardworking. They're very cleanliness conscious and all that. So no doubt there are. But we're talking about feeding 8 billion people, and in actual fact, we're not feeding 8 billion people, because 20% of the world are eating the meat the way that we do, right? You know, not everyone in the world can afford meat, right? So, you know, us Western societies, like we've got to a point, and this is why we have such an obesity pandemic, if you like, is because, you know, we want our 3 meals a day, and we want snacks in between, and we want, you know, KFC and drive-throughs, and we want meat on every meal, you know, and so we're consuming a lot of meat, and we're doing it often, every day. You go back a few decades, meat was a treat. It wasn't like an every meal thing, right? Now it's like every meal and snacks. Not for everybody, but for a lot of people, right? So here's the thing, with the best willed farmers in the world, and even the best willed slaughterhouse workers in the world, it's like there's so much demand that there's pressure, right? In a lot of these slaughterhouses, some of the animals are not getting killed, and I hate this word because I do not believe there's a humane way to kill anything, but I'll say humanely in quotation marks. So what happens is they're supposed to be stunned before they're killed, right?
We're down to 1 minute, Jamie.
Oh, 1 minute. Okay, yeah. Well, what happens is, like, often they're stunned and they regain consciousness. They're not stunned properly. Then they're fully conscious at the time of getting their throat slit. It's just rush, because there's like supermarket shelves to fill, and it's all rushed. And there's so many people, and like it's all got to get done. And it's all got to, you know, there's targets. It's all rush and pressure, right? And so yeah, and of course there's that many livestock. There's that many mouths to feed. They are dirty. You know, it can't be helped. Like, look at chickens. How can there be clean barns for chickens when there's thousands upon thousands upon thousands of chickens in the barn? They never see the light of day. 3% of pigs live their entire lives outdoors. That's a UK figure. I don't know if that applies to the United States or worldwide. But yeah, I mean, they're indoors. They're in small spaces. They're crowded, right? So...
Fortunately, we've run out of time, but I know that this is a topic that may require several episodes. And so if anybody watching this is passionate or is interested in what you're sharing, because I am aware you've done a lot of research. So Jamie, you've created a website for this. Could you share it with us and tell my viewers where they could find it so they could look into, if they're interested in what you've published so far based on your research?
Yeah, certainly. Okay, so my website is myveganjourney.co.uk. Myveganjourney.co.uk.
myveganjourney.co.uk. So if
That's
you're
correct.
interested, and if you're passionate as Jamie is about this, and you're interested in looking up what he has researched and published, please check out his website. And I promise that I will bring Jamie back. Tonight we discuss cows, and I guess we're going to have a segment on pigs and chickens, and maybe fish if you're interested, because
Yeah. Maybe environment and health, and there's all kinds of things. Yeah.
yes, and this is not to guilt trip anyone. My show is a show where I have conversations with people. And the views on the show are not often mine, but I'm just here to share stories. And if the information resonates with you, brilliant. If not, you don't have to watch this segment. So I thank you so much for continuing to watch Conversations with Jenny Lynn. When a conversation is all you need to be inspired, and hopefully you have gathered some inspiration from Jamie's passion, especially from the fact that he is losing so much weight simply by giving up his carnivore habits. And I will see you next time. Thank you.